Hello, hello. Today is January 25th, 2023. Yay. Man, we're almost through with January. Can you believe it? Man, it's gone by so quickly, seems like. Maybe that's, when you're just so busy all the time, like I am. Seems like it goes by really quickly. So, we're here again with our tiger drawing. Continuing where we left off yesterday, which was, here, let me back all the way out. So we had the, let me hide the drawing and that. So after going through the full design process, we determined this was going to be our composition. We got our palette figured out pretty much. And then I realized that, well, I didn't realize. After I did the research of looking at a Siberian tiger, which we have here, and the difference between a Sumatran tiger, we decided that we wanted to use the structure that we have here of this tiger, but change it to a Sumatran tiger. The differences are, pretty simple in a lot of ways. Actually, the Sumatran tiger is the smallest tiger, but because there's not really much comparison here, I don't think that's going to be a big deal. The bigger change is going to be the way the stripes are oriented. On the Sumatran tiger, they're smaller and a bit closer together, or thinner and a bit closer together. And the Sumatran tiger has more orange, which is wonderful because that's going to further enhance that, the orange on our composition is going to further enhance that composition. So I was happy with figuring that one out. So that's going to be nice. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just using one of the basic brushes in Krita. This is called the, it's Chris Drawing, but it's actually this brush that I adjusted the size for it. So C Pencil 3 large 4B. It comes default with Krita. And the only change that I made to it on this brush was I went into strength and I upped the bottom levels for the strength a little bit. And then I changed the brush tip size to be 5 pixels automatically. So it's a little bit smaller. Yeah, and that's what we're doing. We're having a lot of fun in full screen mode by hitting tab on Krita and just drawing this big, beautiful cat. But I said yesterday that I could just do this all day, and I can. Just sitting here and drawing. Okay, I'm on the wrong, I must be on the wrong layer. I have to make sure I'm on the right layer. Always want to do that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to lock these other layers to make sure I don't adjust them. So now I can only draw on this layer. That happens so often to me. I think it's because, I've started out in traditional, and getting used to the whole layer thing is going to take some time. And honestly, I've only been doing digital art, or art on a digital screen for, oh man, I guess it has been a while now. 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 months. Yeah, I mean, when I say a while, it's not near as long as a lot of artists have been working in digital art. So, can't compare myself against others too much, right? I'm at my own stages. You're at your own stage. Good morning, Thinker. Thanks for joining me again, as always. Appreciate it. Hope your day is going wonderful. Your morning is going wonderful. One of the things that I did was draw a lot of some of this tiger on an incorrect layer So I'm figuring out which lines are on that incorrect layer. I'm going to have to make adjustments to them. Do I name my layers? You know, I do when it's really necessary. I name my groups in a lot of ways, like the reference where the drawing is. But I don't really name the things. It's because you could create so many layers so much that it would take, so long. One of the best things you can do is hit this little button up here at the top. It's a little hamburger menu. And just make the thumbnail images like super large, like that's as large as they can go. And with that, you can really see what each layer is about. I mean, or each group is about a bit easier. So I'm going to do that and make it more helpful. Oops. Okay. Let's get into this drawing. I am doing some kind of value indication on this. Lots of hair. This is going to be really fun to paint. Another positive for working this image up digitally before going into an oil paint is figuring out how to correctly generalize the hair. There's a lot of artists out there that do, kind of photorealistic renderings, hyper-realism, that kind of stuff. Which takes a lot of work, a lot more work than I think many people want to put into artwork. Where they would go in and render every single little hair. I'm not really for that, honestly. There's a lot of skill there. There's a lot of time and effort, definitely. But I always ask the question, why not just take a photo, right? If you're going to do a rendering that detailed where it looks just like a photo, why not take a photo? It'd be nice to have a conversation with an artist that does hyperrealism. Why not just take a photo? So I would rather take what I think is a more difficult route and go for how to correctly generalize these things. As artists, I feel like the very first thing that we learn is how to, well, it's not the very first thing we learn. A lot of artists are, struggle with it a lot. Figure out how to copy things, how to transfer the three-dimensional world that we see onto a two-dimensional canvas or digital screen. And I'm not trying to denigrate that. That's how I learned everything. That's what I'm doing right now. But there comes a point when I think the art that we love most is the art, this impressionistic idea or pathway where many artists are able to take things like all the hair on this tiger and get the impression of it, the generalization of it, and make it look authentic. I think that is super hard. And if you can achieve that, it's fantastic. In a lot of ways, I think that's harder than just copying. Do you think adding a highlight in the tiger's eye will add to the intensity of his start? Probably. I mean, we can kind of do it here. I'm working in one color right now, or one value, but you just kind of take out a little bit there. If I added in kind of a white, like even if I go over here and select a white, something like that. Pretty simple and easy to do. Oh, let me go get my black again. Stare. Yeah, I think it does add to the intensity of the stare. I mean, the more that we add on here, the intensity will happen. Because it's there, we'll capture it. As soon as we add the lighting into it, it's going to be even more intense of a stare than the image that we're seeing, definitely. I always want to make sure that what I'm putting down is describing the form. This muzzle has a turn to it, has a form to it. I want to make sure that things are described well. That's the most important, I would say. You know, that's the reason for drawing, is describing that form. So we always have to kind of like check within that. So I'm seeing a shadow shape here that I want to capture. And don't be afraid to kind of outline your planes in this stage. So if you see, you know, a plane like this, the side of the bridge of the nose here, I can lightly, just very lightly outline it. And then with the angle of the slope of that side of the nose, we can indicate, you know, the change in direction. Let me bring it in a bit more. See, I have lines going too many ways on that one. And there's a lot of things that I'm looking at right now, and I think let's move into the eye. Those are the center of interest, and I kind of got to, you know, I did the right eye, and then I got into all of the shape of the head, but let's get those eyes down correct first. The best, probably a better way of doing this, that I would suggest, is to find your center of interest, whatever you're working on, and do that first. There's going to be a tendency for you to get kind of detailed in a lot of ways, and that's fine, especially with your center of interest. You want that to get detailed, but you know, spending all of your energy at the beginning on what matters most. I mean, there's multiple reasons for that. You know, if it's your focal point, get it right. You have all the energy at the beginning of the painting or the drawing. You know, use that energy to get it correct right away. like creative energy, physical energy. It matters. A lot of people don't think about it, but it really matters. You know, if you work 5 or 6 hours on a drawing and then you start getting into the most important parts, I mean, by that point you're going to be kind of lazy. Or, well, maybe not lazy, but lack some energy. So the one thing I really have a problem with on Krita. So if you go up to, and it doesn't work in a lot of ways that I don't like, but you have these guides. So you can go up to a ruler bar. If you have rulers shown, which is like Control R or something, you can drag down a rule. You can do that from left to right. So I can like get a quick vertical and horizontal. But the problem with it is if I want to draw next to that, I can't because it wants me to select. It's really kind of annoying. That selection, like I should have to hit like a different tool to select that. So my selection tool should select that. But if I'm on my brush, that should go away because I can't draw next to this anymore, right? So there's definitely some improvements there that they can make. I think this music is too loud. It's too loud for me. Turn it down just a little bit. But you can get rid of them by just dragging them off into those rulers again. But the reason why I was dragging down that rule is because I wanted to see we have a correct eye. I love this eye. I think it's perfectly correct. I wanted to see I could draw a straight line here. I wanted to see where the top of this eye, the left eye, is compared to the top of the right eye. And basically I need to bring my left eye up just a little bit. If I want to match our drawing, it needs to come up just a little bit. And the other thing is if I'm zoomed in and I drag it up, it will stay up there. Like it should go away, honestly, regardless of my zoom level. If I drag it into this area. Anyway, small gripe about Krita, which doesn't happen often, honestly. Actually, it doesn't go up. It's good where it's at. As I compare that again. I was talking too much about my annoyances with Krita. Well, my one annoyance. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I don't like about Krita. Now, the one thing I want to make sure is that these eyes are the right width to each other. And the right height. That the pupils are in the right place. Which, considering this eye is lower, it should be down a little bit lower. But yeah, that's fine. Why do you use cross-hatching to describe the form rather than painting using values? That's a really good point. That's a really good question. I have no idea. No, I'm just kidding. Values are flat, basically. If I outlined, let's do this. Let's say we have a cylinder. Let's do a cylinder. So here's a quick cylinder. Let's do another one. Got to get those ellipses right. And let's say the top one I had, let's outline some values. So this is the shadow side on the right. Halftone here. Maybe a halftone there. And then light on this side. And if I close these up, maybe I can fill it. This brush has a lot of texture. I bet you it won't fill. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's gonna fill the entire thing. Or maybe it's done nothing. Ah yeah, the opacity is really low on this. I'm not sure why the opacity is going down on that. Okay. Oh, my eraser's on. Yeah, it didn't fill. So I would have to get one of these brushes. Let me do this again. It's a good challenge. I like being challenged because let's go into a different space. That helps me to get clarity on the reason and why I do things as well. Welcome challenge. Welcome challenges from others. You can only learn from it. My very ugly cylinder there. Shadow side right here. Maybe we'll make it a little bit lighter for halftone. And then maybe go to this light area for the light side. Okay, so this is our cylinder. And like I did the fill just really quickly because it's easier to, or it's faster to illustrate this. But if I do fills on this, it's more graphical than anything. Maybe I do even like a gradient. No, I haven't really used gradients very much. Whoa. Gradients do not stay inside their fill area, do they? No, they do not. So if I do, well, yeah, we won't worry about the gradient. So if I do it that way, I lose an opportunity. It becomes very graphical. Actually, I flip that cylinder. It needs to be on this side. Nope. Here, here, here. So if I go through and I try and describe this form with hatching, and I don't do cross hatching, I keep it all the same direction. And in this instance, it would all be about spacing. With my very like kind of graphical brush. So, I mean, it's a very ugly example. This one looks nice and clean, doesn't it? The top one is like, oh, look how clean that is. But I prefer the energy in the bottom one. So part of that is a preference, but there's also a chance to describe form a bit more. And I guess on the real world kind of tiger example would be maybe even a better example. So if let's say that, let me insert a new layer. On this side of the head, we have this section. Wow, why did that get so dark? That is so dark. Look at that. All I did was make the brush bigger. there's another reason for you, and at least in this instance, because this would change. All I wanted to do is just kind of fill this area. So if I fill it with like a flat color, there you go, that's better. So I'm not worried about, and I'm drawing, okay, so this would be no different than if you're drawing on a piece of paper with a pencil. And you're just filling in these kind of areas, okay. Flat values. Does it describe the form? Yeah. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of form description within that. But you also lose an opportunity to describe even more of the rounding of that. And then once you get into subtle shading, you know, of maybe how this goes out into the bridge of the nose, if you're not thinking about the form at all, it could be just these kind of flat things. Maybe you have a tendency, like many people do, to just do a stroke all in the same direction. It's hard to get it really light on this bigger brush. Yeah, I think it could be more preference than anything, but I like the opportunity that you get there. Not only just visually for making a good drawing, you know, and then that's subjective. That's a subjective statement, but for an internal understanding for you. So if you're actively thinking about like the direction of these hairs, right? And how they are behind the eye, and the eye is behind this ridge of the brow. If you're thinking about this and getting an understanding of, well, here, let's do this. If I change to a red, go back to this overlay. When I'm doing hatching, I'm thinking about the form, how the bridge of the nose rotates and then flows down this way, maybe at a much more slight angle, and then it levels off a bit and then goes right back down. Right? These cross contours that give you an understanding for the form. We should be able to do this throughout any part of the tiger. So the back of the head is starting way back here, and then it curves forward, levels out, probably, I have to look at it more, and then it curves down into the eye socket. The eye itself comes out a bit, and then here, that kind of shelf of the eyelid, and then down, around, and then maybe out this way. We're constantly thinking about the form. So hatching is more like brush stroke direction in traditional oil painting. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, coming from a traditional realm, myself, yeah, I'm definitely going to use that. And if you look at my paintings on my website, chrisbevan.com, you'll see how I use hatching, not really hatching, but just these continuous brush strokes. Like, I wouldn't call it hatching. I mean, hatching is very specific, where you could go the same direction on the entire piece, and then just to determine value, you would change a direction, and then make it darker in another way. You would create another direction, and it's a way of creating value and form as well. This is more of, you know, specifically choosing a direction of strokes that best describe the form. I mean, I wouldn't use a horizontal stroke over this whole tiger. You could, but you'd just be leaning on the value to communicate form. There's a whole host of opportunity within choosing the direction specifically for everything you do. But then I always have to preface this with that's a subjective thing. Can you describe form with just, flat planes? No hatching whatsoever? Of course you can. You can do it really well that way. But as far as what I enjoy and I think works really well, that's it. Using this kind of stroke method, I guess, if you want to call it. And it's kind of like another tool you can grab, right? Instead of just saying, "Oh, I always just do everything the same way." You have another tool. Because this eye, I just want to make it a little bit darker, so I can just do a vertical, very light vertical line all the way down. But then I could make it darker in places with small curved lines to subtly, very subtle, get some darker value in there. Just kind of build it up. I'm just noticing now that the eye there, it's not really the iris, and the color of the eye has this really light color around it, really kind of showing off the eyes well, making them even more intense. So I'll have to take advantage of that definitely when we get to more value range of things. For the tear duct here of the tiger, I will hatch it in a way that it's curved inward. A lot of times I do this, I spend the extra time on it, and maybe it doesn't describe anything any better whatsoever. But what it does do is give me a better understanding of the form. And as I'm doing this, if I want to make something darker, I do actually crosshatch. But I do it in a way that's kind of a cross contour, 90 degrees in a lot of ways. What do I mean by that? If I want to darken something up, back to that cylinder example, let's just make it flat. This is actually really good. Well, no, actually the edges would be curved. So the cylinder example, my tendency, what I like to do is to go across the form like this first, describe that curvature, and then if I need to make things darker, I could do a 90 degree with the form. But those cross form hatching still shows a bit darker down this way. So yeah, I do cross hatching. I watched once, I don't know how long ago, an artist doing professional pen and ink, and how he worked up this just fantastic drawing in pen and ink. And he had angles planned out. So certain areas would get, this angle at first. So let's say it was like a 30-degree angle. It was whatever worked with, the orientation of his hand and arm. And then if he needed to change value or increase the darkness of it, he would go either opposite of that or change the degrees in some way so that it got darker. And if it needed to get darker, he would change the degrees a little bit more. And so you would end up with something like vertical, and then a different degree, and then opposite of that, and then horizontal. It'd make this really cool kind of perfect pattern. he was so good at it. I mean, it was like a computer rendering almost of straight lines because, you know, he had done nothing but those straight lines for years. I'm looking at all these amazing stripes, these little like chunks of black. The shape language that is just inherent in this the nature of the tiger is beautiful. Look how it just accentuates the eyes even more. It's like this wonderful graphical shape. Leyendecker would love this. Leyendecker is an amazing illustrator, was an amazing illustrator that actually trained Norman Rockwell. His figures are like made out of stone. If you want to study planes, if you want to study how to render hair in a very graphical way that is, you know, it's actually very stylistic. You know, check out Leyendecker. I forget his first name. Most artists just say Leyendecker. It's kind of like Rembrandt. You know, you just say Rembrandt. David. Sargent. Da Vinci. Cassatt. Degas. Van Gogh. You know, all these greats. There you go. One day, I would like to be known just by one name. Like you just say Bevan, and then everybody's like, oh, yeah, okay. That guy. He went crazy, I remember. He was working so hard on his art that he just went crazy or something. Too many live streams. Yeah. Gotta watch out for the Bevan reaction or something. I don't know. Just making up stuff now. Have to be careful. Someone will come into the live stream and think I'm, you know, passing on some kind of information. That's good. Anyway, let's get back to the focus, Chris. Let's get back to the drawing here. I'm really I'm just looking at these shapes. The problem is I've been creating all these shapes over here. But I haven't been I've been looking at them individually, like as they exist, you know, in this area. But what I haven't been doing is seeing, you know, what do they compare to on the right side? And so as soon as I, you know, move my hand, because my hand's covering up the right side, I can see, oh, these are quite a bit off comparatively. So I'm going to erase some of those. Let me go ahead and finish this eye up. I want to get the area around the eye much darker. Grab that intensity. You know what's interesting, and I will say this. Most digital painting software, when they try to do traditional, have gotten it wrong. And I think the programmers should start painting. There's probably some programmers out there that do paint, especially in oil. They continue to program the brushes as if they're a pencil or a pen or charcoal. But oil paint does not react the same as a charcoal pencil or as a graphite pencil. So with graphite, when you press lightly, nothing goes down. And then you press hard and you get a dark line. And painting software has that down just perfect. Well, at least the painting software I've dealt with, which has been Photoshop, Krita, and then the other painting softwares from Photoshop as well. I've kind of dealt with. I forgot their name. There's another one out there it's pretty good. It's more for graphical arts, but with oil paint, the harder you press, the less goes down. So if you have a brush full of paint and you press really hard, what you're gonna get is kind of like a stroke in the center where it's kind of light, where you've pulled off the paint beneath, and then on the outside you're gonna get this kind of thick splotch of paint because you just squeezed it out of your entire brush. But if you do very light strokes with a very full paintbrush, you'll get this very thick kind of stroke of color. So it's opposite in a lot of ways. It's kind of opposite yet not. So I have to advise them in some way. Hey, that's not the way it works with oil paint. But the cool thing about it is within Krita, at one point, I got rid of them, but I made a brush that actually reacted that way. But because I'm so used to pressing harder on these screens to get more paint out, it was like a different world. It was like, oh my God, this is so weird. So you barely press down and you get a bunch of paint out, and then the harder you press, you get less paint. Yeah, that's how a brush works. But within reason, I guess. You're not always... It depends on how much paint is loaded into your brush as well. They haven't been able to achieve that to my level of satisfaction or exactness with oil. So I still use, this kind of technique that they have, where you press harder, you get more paint, and it works in a digital realm. So then that begs the question, does it need to be exactly the same? It's kind of like with movies. The transfer of a book to a movie. I've read a lot of books. Not a ton, mind you, a lot of books, especially a lot of novels, like fantasy novels and things like that. And I would say most of the time, a book that is taken into a movie... Well, no, like 90%, 100% of the time, if a book is taken into a movie, it is not the same as the book. It can't be. It's a different medium. If you took a book and you said, okay, I'm gonna make the movie exactly like the book was, you'd have all of this kind of narration in the head. Like there would be just a pause in the action, like nothing would be happening on screen, and it would just be narration forever, in a lot of books. It would not work. It's a different medium. So when you jump into digital medium, there's a tendency, I think, and I do the same. I'm like, oh, I want it to be like oil paint. I could see, like, I want it to look like it's an oil painting. Well, no, even that, I'll question that. Does it need to look like an oil painting? I don't know. I don't think so. It's kind of like, with Impressionism or any new art movement. What is the reaction? That doesn't look like what we do. You're doing it wrong. Make it look like what we do. That's the reaction most of the time. Oh, that's digital art. It doesn't look exactly like a traditional painting. Make it look like traditional painting. But I think it's okay to just let it stand on its own. Don't be afraid, especially in digital, and especially in when you're doing an oil painting, to erase something you worked really hard on. You thought it was right, but it's not. Correct it. Whatever right is to you. Reminds me of a quote from Richard Schmidt's book, Alla Prima, which is a fantastic oil painting book. If you're an oil painter, it's kind of like one of those required reading books, right? You can gain so much from it. It's just that good. But he says, never, write this down and put it on your easel. Never knowingly leave anything incorrect on your canvas. The important part about that is knowingly. You have to know it. Then that's all part of seeing, right? Learning to see is the most important. Okay, there's going to be some adjustment to these markings. They're not going to be exact. And that's fine. Oh, I do want the shape language to describe the head, because we have all these awesome shapes within these tiger stripes, which they're not really stripes all the time. They're like chunks of just black color kind of everywhere. These tiger black chunks. I'll keep calling them stripes. We have an opportunity to look at the shapes that they're creating and render them in some way that would make the shape of the head or the enhancement of the intensity of the gaze even more intense. How can we adjust this so that it enhances even more? I'm really liking this. I think it's looking really good. I don't say that often about what I'm doing. Like most artists, we always see what we could be, what we can be, where we're not, how we can improve. But there's those days, those wonderful days, like right now, where You look at something that you're creating, you're like, you know what? I feel like that looks pretty good. And then you zoom out and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? That happens all the time to me. Like, oh, I'm doing so good. I'm doing so good. Nope. You thought you were, but then you zoomed out. Actually, I zoomed out and I still like the way this looks. I mean, how could I not? Look how beautiful this tiger is. I'm just copying the darn tiger. I'm not saying that that's simple or easy, but the beauty is all in nature, really. I mean, look at these. I'm looking at a friend's artwork and videos that he's creating for these beautiful landscape paintings. His name is Michael Orwick. And he'll have a video where he's out painting, like a landscape, plein air painting, plein air, right? And the landscape is just so beautiful. It's like, I mean, it looks like a painting already. like paint itself. It has been painted. Nature has already painted it. And we're just sitting there just awestruck with our mouth open, with brush to canvas, trying to capture what's already there. But he has this way of capturing these landscape paintings that, you know, are what you see, but more in a lot of ways. Can't describe it. Like he's augmented the reality of it. Okay, getting too far out with that. So we've set up some key bindings, keyboard shortcuts, they call them in Krita, to help with moving back and forth from different tools. One of the ones that I use a lot, and I have been using a lot, is the W key. And I could use it more often here because I've been erasing with just this brush at the same size, because in Krita you can get erasers, you know, and switch to an eraser, but Krita's like, why would you want to do that? You can use the same brush as an eraser, just hit a key and it switches to an eraser, which I really like that concept. So I can just quickly hit E and then erase. Where it kind of falls down a little bit is if you need to erase a bunch, then you'll have to hold shift, make your brush a lot larger, and then, you know, hit E and erase this whole area. Oops. I guess I could show just like that. But then getting back to where you were, we have this keybind with W, and it will it is set to reset your brush settings back to their defaults. And that W, man, has been so helpful. I got that from David Revoy, comic book artist that does the comic book Pepper and Carrot. And if you see like any illustrations related to Krita, you will see like his illustrations, because he does a lot of stuff for Krita that's just fantastic. Thinker says, really liked your practical color wheel video. Hey, thanks a lot. Yeah, I was rushing really crazy to get that out on Tuesday. Every Tuesday I like to get a video out, like one of those, not a live stream, but like a video on demand. After I did it though, I was looking, I was like, wow, creating that color wheel took a lot of time and effort. But man, it's been so helpful, and I use it for every painting. Every single painting, I'm referencing that color wheel. That has been the one thing that has helped me understand color more than anything else. Because it's one of those things where you could sit in class and the teacher's rambling on about color theory and how Monet used, specific parts of the halftone before it goes into shadow, and to accentuate, the intensity of color that happens there. It's like a light phenomenon, blah, 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 right? But where you learn the most is within practical application, where you're sitting there trying to do a painting, and then you say to yourself, how in the heck do I get that color? That's the color I need to get. And color wheels just don't help you for that. They try to. I mean, they give you that theory. Yeah, a blue, if you want to neutralize a blue, you use an orange or a yellow, a yellowish orange color. If you want to neutralize a red, you use a green. So that kind of theory is helpful, definitely. But what green that I have, or what blue or orange that I have, will work? And then you get into the nuance of it. Well, I need to neutralize this red, but I also need to make it lighter in some way. And if you use the color wheel that I created, you'll look at it and you'll go, oh, you know what? If I use this cadmium green, which is a lighter green, it will both neutralize this red and make it lighter, all at the same time. Wow, use that. Just save some time. Got a bit more understanding of how my palette works with my colors that are sitting right on my palette, my glass palette right in front of me. And you get an understanding of where your palette falls short. That's one thing I didn't mention in the video. There's a lot of artists out there that love the Zorn palette, which is a super minimal palette. Doesn't even have blue on it. And you're like, oh yeah, I just use the Zorn palette exclusively. Well, that's good if you paint warm subject matter all the time. But then you could you could really quickly see where your palette just doesn't hold up in some ways. Like, oh, I could do so much more if I just added one more color that does this, because it's what I use most often or something. So yeah, that video, and I don't usually share something that I don't know a lot about, right? Because I'm going to be spending a lot of time and effort on, creating and especially editing those videos. Editing takes like 10 times longer than the creation of the video. So I want to add in, I want to, actually my main goal, what I write down every day, well, it's written down and I look at every day, is to help artists become better versions of themselves. I'm not trying to make artists, be better artists. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. Especially for anyone else. What I want to do is help you make or give you the tools so you can make the decision of what's better for you, better version of you. We still want you. Don't want to transfer. I don't want to say, oh, you need to make art the way I make it. There's already one of me. Don't do me. Steal from me, do yourself, right? But better version of yourself, whatever that may be. That's what I want to do. So the first thing I'm going to do, or the last thing I'm going to do before I end this stream is I'm going to go down to this layer. This is the one where I accidentally painted on the wrong layer. I'm going to select this gray and I'm going to lightly just kind of paint over these lines that I know are on this layer. Keep them there, but just push them way back. They're guidelines now. So I'm just turning it on and off, seeing where those lines are, and just going over them with a gray, the same color as the background, to lighten them up. So they'll still be there to help me, to orient me in the correct direction. Yeah, it's basically the whole bottom. So let's zoom out. I did the whole tiger body on that layer. That's okay. Really big brush, going over the whole thing. Okay, can lock that layer again, lock that top one. Control S is your friend, or Command S. Make sure you hit it all the time. Control S, Command S. Always want to save what you're working on. At any point in time, you can lose it. My really good friend Josh, we were just talking the other day on a call, and he's like, "Oh man, I can't find those drawings that I spent hours on. Did I not save them?" No, he did not. I was like, "Wait, don't you just hit Control S all the time?" He's like, "No, I just, Krita does autosave." And I was like, "No." Don't rely on autosaves. The only autosave that I've ever relied on that's been very consistent is Google Docs, like online. Like that autosave's really good, like every few seconds. But anyone else, it's like, no way, especially local programs like this. All right, here we are, a little bit further into the detailed drawing of the tiger. I can zoom out just a little bit. I'm happy with the drawing, very happy with the drawing so far. Getting closer and closer. And that's the end of today's live stream. We will continue with this for the next live stream, probably the next. When I say this, I mean specifically the drawing. Until we get the whole tiger body done, and then we'll move into the background. And the background I won't get too very detailed with. It'll just be the major players in the background. Yeah, that's how it's going to roll. And then after all that drawing is done, we'll create a new layer. We'll start working in color digitally and get deep into coloring this whole thing, which is going to be even more fun. I expect this is going to take a couple weeks of live streams, 7 to 14 days of live streams, maybe. Hopefully not that long, but I'm going pretty slow on this, so There you go. I know there's a lot of artists out there that can go a lot faster than me, but that's them. And I'm me. Okay, thanks guys for joining. I will see you tomorrow.